The Christina Applegate scandal just got way darker. It's over. Christina Applegate had fame, money, and what looked from the outside like a perfect Hollywood career. But beneath that surface was a life built on secrets she kept hidden for decades. A stalker broke into her home and put on her clothes. Anonymous death threats targeted her fiancé on Twitter. And one night with a powerful TV producer left her with bruises she could never fully explain. At 19, she got pregnant by a man who held a shard of glass against her neck, and everyone on the set of Married with Children knew. So why did nobody step in? The real story of her life is finally out, and it is darker than anyone imagined. Christina Applegate was born on November 25, 1971 in Hollywood, California. Her father worked as a staff producer at Dot Records. Her mother, Nancy Lee Pretty, was a folk singer and actress who had released her own album and named Christina after an Andrew Wyeth painting, then used that same title for one of her own songs, as if her daughter's life and her career were already one story. That story fractured almost immediately. Her parents separated within months of her birth. Money was tight. There were no babysitters, so Christina was pulled into her mother's working life before she could speak. At 3 months old, she appeared in a baby bottle commercial. Not long after, she appeared in Days of Our Lives alongside her mother, cast as a baby boy simply because the production needed a baby and she was available. By kindergarten, she already had a Screen Actors Guild card. That kind of childhood teaches you things fast. It teaches you that adults will decide who you are, what you look like, and what role you need to play. And for Christina, those lessons did not stay on a set. Between the ages of 3 and 7, the damage piled up in ways no child should ever carry. She was molested by a female babysitter. She watched her mother use heroin. A live-in boyfriend physically abused both mother and daughter. Christina later described those years with brutal clarity. She knew what was happening was wrong even then, felt sick and scared and sad. The incident with the babysitter never fully left her. She later wrote that after that, she never quite felt comfortable being touched, and that discomfort followed her for the rest of her life. She also shared one small memory that says more than any long explanation could. She remembered being thrilled as a child when dinner included hamburger buns, because that meant there was enough food for bread to even be on the table. Even so, she never painted her mother as a simple villain. Christina has said she loved Nancy deeply, with a tenderness that carried real pain inside it. Her mother used to say she never met a junkie she didn't like, and Christina eventually admitted that phrase had shaped her own patterns. She was drawn to broken men. Men without stable lives. Men she believed she could fix. Long before she understood it, love and chaos had already been wired together in her mind. By her teenage years, she was a working professional. She appeared in films and television throughout the early 1980s, landed a recurring role on Heart of the City at 15, and then in 1987 came the role that made her famous and nearly broke her at the same time. Fox cast her as Kelly Bundy on Married with Children, a show that premiered on April 5, 1987, just as the new network was trying to establish itself. Christina was 15 when she got the part. She was 25 when it ended, after 11 seasons and 259 episodes. Kelly Bundy became one of the most recognizable characters on television. And the image attached to that role became a kind of prison. The wardrobe, tight leather miniskirts, crop tops, lycra dresses, demanded a body that Christina maintained through years of disordered eating and compulsive exercise. She has spoken openly about being anorexic during those years, describing a daily regime of spin class, personal training sessions, and hours of dance class, all driven by the same desperate need for a kind of perfection that always felt just out of reach. By the 5th season, she wrote, the audience would start laughing before she said her first line. Kelly Bundy had become an entrance. A body. A spectacle. By the final season, she had reached a breaking point that felt almost symbolic. She shaved her own head. The producers put her in a wig for the entire year. It was her way of refusing, in at least one small way, to keep handing every piece of herself over to that character. Her personal life during those years was no calmer. One of the most discussed stories from that era happened at the 1989 MTV Video Music Awards. Christina was 17. She had invited a then unknown 26-year-old actor named Brad Pitt as her date. He drove her there alongside her mother and best friend. But during the show, her attention locked onto Sebastian Bach, the frontman of Skid Row. She left with Bach at the end of the night while Pitt drove her mother and friend home. It came out years later that he had talked about that slight for decades. Two different famous girlfriends later asked Christina if she was the girl who ditched Brad Pitt at the VMAs. Around the same age, she also briefly dated Anthony Kiedis of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, who was 26 while she was still 17. Nobody stepped in to say any of that was deeply off. Then came something far more serious. In 1991, during the 5th season of the show, Christina was 19 and involved with an abusive man she has chosen not to name publicly. She became pregnant and had an abortion at 6 weeks. The violence in that relationship stayed with her in vivid flashes. One Christmas, he shattered a mirror, picked up a shard of glass, held it to her neck, and forced her to undress. She later wrote that he wanted her to believe he might kill her and that fear itself seemed to satisfy him. The people who finally intervened were her television family. Ed O'Neill, who played Al Bundy, was furious. Katie Sagal stepped in too. They became, in a way, the protective family her real life had failed to provide. There was another experience that remains unresolved even in her own memory. At some point, she went somewhere with television producer Kim Manners. She blacked out. When she woke up the next day, she had marks on her body and no clear memory of what had happened. She never told anyone before her memoir. Manners died in 2009, and whatever happened that night remains buried inside missing memory, physical evidence, and a feeling she has never been able to shake. The stalking was its own chapter of horror. One man broke into her home and was found wearing her clothes. Another kept appearing outside the Columbia Pictures lot during filming and had already been to her house. A third, in 2000, was obsessively targeting Christina at the same time he was stalking Madonna and Mariah Carey. He faced felony stalking charges and had outstanding warrants in Arizona. Then in 2012, just after Christina became engaged to Dutch bassist Martin Lenoble, an anonymous Twitter account began sending him death threats. The messages were chilling. One said she would have been his if not for Martin. Another threatened to blow his head off. The LAPD moved quickly, obtained a warrant from Twitter, and traced the account, but before charges could be filed, it was deleted, and no public arrest followed. Even in the happiest moment of her personal life, fear found its way back in. In April 2008, at 36, while filming the ABC sitcom Samantha Who, Christina was diagnosed with early-stage breast cancer. An MRI, which she could only afford because she had money, a fact that stayed with her, detected cancer cells before they formed a tumor. She tested positive for the BRCA1 gene mutation, which sharply raises the lifetime risk of breast and ovarian cancer. So she made a fast decision, a bilateral prophylactic double mastectomy. Before surgery, she arranged a nude photo shoot. She wanted something to remember. Then she had both breasts removed and kept working, telling no one on set for weeks. When she finally spoke publicly, she used humor. She joked about having the best boobs in the nursing home someday. People laughed. Christina smiled. She later admitted that smile was not real, that everything she said at the time was a performance hiding an emotional collapse. She did not want to be a symbol of brave suffering. But the world expected that role from her, and once again, she gave it what it needed. Then came the diagnosis that changed everything. Early in 2019, while running across the set of Netflix's Dead to Me, Christina fell. Nobody understood what it meant at the time. She had already earned 2 Primetime Emmy nominations for the series, and from the outside, it looked like a triumphant late career chapter. But inside her body, something had already started going wrong. Showrunner Liz Feldman later recalled noticing Christina losing her balance more than once during those grueling 14 and 15-hour shoot days, sensing that something was genuinely off. The symptoms had started in her toes. A little numbness. She was still hiking, still playing tennis, still living normally. But the numbness spread from her toes to her ankles, then to her knees. Her balance got worse. The pain became brutal. And the strangest part, as she later described it, was that the numbness itself hurt. In August 2021, Christina Applegate was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. She was 49 years old. She later revealed she had 30 lesions on her brain, the largest one sitting behind her right eye. Since the diagnosis, her body has put her through suffering that is difficult to describe. She has been hospitalized more than 30 times in 3 years. Her gastrointestinal symptoms became so extreme she reduced them to one sharp sentence: if she has to use the bathroom, she vomits first. She told her podcast co-host Jamie Lynn Sigler that MS, for her, means lying in bed screaming from sharp, aching, squeezing pain. She can no longer open bottles. Some days she cannot pick up her own phone. At one point, even the TV remote began to feel too heavy. In early 2026, speaking to People magazine around the release of her memoir, the picture she drew of her daily life was devastatingly quiet. She said she was mostly confined to her bed. She used diapers. She scooted downstairs on her butt. When Conan O'Brien asked what a good day looked like for her, she answered without flinching, "I'm never good. I'm just less shitty." In March 2025, on her podcast, Christina revealed that she had bought a burial plot for herself and 2 additional plots for 2 other people. She had been thinking about death every day since the diagnosis. She chose the location because it was, in her words, really pretty. She never said who the other 2 plots were for. She did not need to. Her daughter Sadie, now 14, was diagnosed in 2024 with POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, a condition that causes dizziness, rapid heart rate, and fainting upon standing. During 6th grade, school nurses reportedly dismissed Sadie's symptoms as anxiety and sent her back to class. Sadie also lives with misophonia and has experienced tremors that reminded Christina of her own early MS symptoms. The guilt of that parallel has been one of the heaviest parts of everything Christina now carries. She still drives Sadie to school every morning. And every time, she blasts the 1997 song Sex and Candy through the car speakers. She told People that detail was kind of her in a nutshell. And somehow it is. Because even now, after the childhood abuse, the stalkers, the abusive relationship at 19, the blackout she never explained, the cancer, the disease eating through her nervous system, a hospitalization after hospitalization, there is still something in her that refuses to go completely quiet. She said it herself, if she stops making the jokes, she will suffocate. So she keeps making them. Not because she has found peace, but because she is still here, still fighting, and not yet done.